Returning to Geopolitics and Empire is Hakeem Anwar of AbovePhone.com and TakeBackOurTech.com. What's up, Hakeem?
Labore, it's good to be back, man. How are you?
I'm doing, it's the best of times, the worst of times. Maybe I'll tell my story in a bit, but let's look at what you got. It hasn't been too long since you've been on the podcast. I was just looking at your appearance on Corporate Report, which was great, which we'll be talking about that. And I think later today we have the Independent Media Alliance, but let me share my screen real quick just to show people who are watching. You just dropped this new report from Take Back people can get on Take Back Our Tech or Above Phone regarding life under digital ID, a global analysis with solutions. And it's the first of a kind that I've seen anything like this published. I really enjoyed it. So tell us about what's going on here.
Yeah, thanks, Labore. So I started seeing this topic come up more and more over the past few months, like 3 or 4 months ago. And it was very kind of like abstract. It's like, yes, we know this is bad. We know that this is the control grid and we know we should not do it. But, as a software engineer, I wanted to know specifically, like, what is the technology behind this thing? Where did it just come from? How come every country is doing it at the same time? And so I just went in a deep dive and I started studying it. And I've looked at programs in 6 different continents to see what are the players behind this thing? What technology are they actually using, and why is it special? And I mean, one of the goals was to come up with a clear definition for digital ID, which I think I have a pretty good one. And, the end result was that I saw that this is not just something that affects you in one country. It's something that will affect you no matter which country you travel to, because it's interoperable. And the same players like the United Nations and the World Bank are responsible for the interoperability projects, even in places that typically can't afford it, like Mexico, South America, Africa. They're pouring billions of dollars into these companies to make sure people have digital ID. So that's why I think it's a really important issue. And I just want to put my mind to figuring out how we avoid this thing.
Yeah, and I want to show where's the report here again, sharing it on the screen for people viewing. The executive summary was very good summary, but just real quick with definition, you cite Kim Cameron, who says, digital identity is a set of claims made by one digital subject about itself or another digital subject. And for people listening who maybe don't follow as closely the algorithm ghetto that I've been banging on about for half a decade now, again, how would you sort of explain this in simple terms for people, what it is? Because many people will think, normies will be like, oh, what's the big deal? It's an app, it's digital ID,
Yeah. Right. It seems really, really convenient and casual. And that's exactly the trap. But I mean, like, you got to know, like, Kim Cameron's work, it's 20 years old, right? Back in 2004 is when he published this paper. This guy was the chief identity architect at Microsoft, and he was working on something called LDAP, which, if you ever worked in a corporate environment, you know LDAP because it's the system that lets one account access different things on the network. So he took what he learned from that and he published this paper, which was conceptually how to make a digital identity system, which is different, right? That's the idea behind digital ID. And so that people wouldn't have to remember so many passwords. That was his problem. He was scared about cyber criminals stealing passwords and taking people's identity. So he came up with this idea of what it would look like. And so that graduated into 20 years later, this digital ID, which is, there's 2 characteristics of a digital ID that I saw. And I kind of had to make this definition approachable to what was going on in Russia and China, where it's very like proprietary. It only works within the country. They don't want to cooperate. They don't want to be interoperable. They're not democratic in that sense. And then also in the EU, where their digital ID system, it's meant to be interoperable. So the two characteristics are that one, that it is a way to cryptographically verify information about any subject. Now, like you can take this, the crazy part is it's extensible, right? You can make a claim about anything. For instance, and this is a pretty dark example, but it's one the United Nations use. So it's like, for a child who doesn't have the ability to use a phone or anything, like a baby that's adopted, you can literally make a claim that the baby is adopted to these parents, right, which was adopted by this agency. So you can layer claims on top of each other, and then you can make that cryptographically verifiable, and that could be a form of digital identity. So you can say it's basically a way to say anything about anybody and make it verifiable that it came from a trusted source. So in that case, it'd be the adoption agency. But let's say you graduated from a college, you'll now get your diploma in a digital ID. And I predict this is going to happen in the next 2 years, right? So that's the way you'll get your dumb diploma. So, they don't have to call into the university and verify it that way. And so the second part is having some level of interoperability. So if it's just within the country, like in Australia for that matter, their digital ID isn't meant to be used outside of the country. So it can work in most government institutions. It is being played around with using it for age verification online, right? So that's within the country. Then in the EU, they want the digital ID system. They have a more open specification they use called verified credentials. It could potentially be used anywhere in the EU. And if they're using that same spec, which many countries are using what this verified credentials spec is, then technically you can be tracked around the world with one digital ID. So it's it's being able to verify information and then being interoperable is what a digital ID is.
I want to jump to in the executive summary where you summarize very neatly in this tablet the global landscape overview. And it looks like you think of Star Trek, the Borg invasion of the body snatchers. The planet is being taken over. Europe, the status it's operational already. The EU stuff, North America. It seems to be it's in the earliest stages in North America when you compare to other parts of the world. In Asia, you say in some parts of Asia it's already complete, in others it's operational. In South America, some places it's already complete. As well as early stage, so there's the full spectrum there, and Africa and Middle East, of course. And you see, we'll get to that, but it's being financed effectively by the globalists, and it makes me think of Patrick McGoohan in The Prisoner. It's the village that McGoohan was stuck on in The Prisoner. This is the global village, so there's really nowhere to run, is there?
Yeah, that's a really good metaphor. There is nowhere to run. It's happening everywhere. Even Jorge, you're in Mexico, and so that's a place a lot of Americans and Europeans went because they didn't have vaccine lockdowns. Well, hey, this is not something you can escape. Like I know the countries off the top of my head that aren't pursuing this, and Antarctica is one. Suriname is another. Do you know about Suriname?
No.
It's supposedly a lawless country next to the Amazon rainforest, but I watched some vlogs and they look like they have some good food there, but it's like completely lawless, which is maybe not such a bad thing now that I think about it. But yeah, so if people are thinking they can escape from this or they can move from this, no. It's happening everywhere. And it is a scary thing to think about, Jorge, but also it's like having the boats burned behind us. Like we're in a war and they've burned the boats behind us. There's a river behind us. There's nowhere to run. So we must stand here and we must create, not fight. We must create better systems. And we've got to convince people now on our side before this network effect gets too big. And then we're in China, where if your name's on a social credit card blacklist, people won't even like engage with you because they're scared of ending up on that blacklist. So
you mentioned Mexico and something interesting that you pointed out that I maybe have forgotten or wasn't aware, where you said now they're pushing the biometric CURP. There's been some pushback. As you mentioned as well in the article, people are fighting this in some states in Mexico. But It says that you give the source, interviews with U.S. officials suggest that the law was passed in exchange for removing U.S. tariffs. So this is emanating from the U.S. And then we had an example a few months back with the tariffs. I forget where it was. Was it Lesotho, somewhere in Africa, where they said, we will remove the tariffs if you make a deal with uh, Elon Musk to bring in the Starlinks. So you can
Hmm.
really see this Western globalist American empire spreading digitalization. It's almost like they're trying to spread it to the rest of the world first, and then they're going to do
Yeah.
it at home in America. But just any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's so true. And they know, I mean, we have American values, so, freedom and the right to privacy and all that. So they have to be a little bit more sneaky with us. Where in other countries, these social services are a lot more important. And also they have a lot more undocumented people, like millions and millions of people. Like I think there's estimates like 6 to 800 million people are still undocumented in Africa, hundreds of millions in South America. So they go first because this digital ID is not just like one day you wake up, there's an app. There has to be all these precursors to it, which is like electronic ID, biometric ID. And so, yes, the US is using its influence. And then also the global powers like the World Bank, they're funding these projects. But inevitably, it will also come to the U.S. It's already here, and about half the states are pursuing the mobile driving licenses thing. And I wish there was more pushback. And I mean, one thing about Mexico, at least there is a legal way for them to not recognize the government's authority anymore, which Derek was educating me on why that is, which is really, really cool. I wish that was in more places.
I want to go back to the financiers for a second, but I'll tell the story I was telling you before we hit record. Just breaking news late last night. We had our meeting with my neighbors in my gated community, and enough people never show up to form a majority to make decisions. But then there's a rule where we have a second meeting in a few days, and whoever shows up, the majority there will make the decisions. And it's funny because Hakeem, it's like those of us like yourself, myself, who understand what's going on, we can predict. I mean, I'm amazed. Like when COVID happened in 2020, I literally imagined this scenario, and it's here now. Like I can't believe it. I knew this was going to come. I was telling my wife, I get angry. I shake my fists at the sky, and it's kind of like it's. I predicted that at some point, the
Yeah.
idiots, my idiot neighbors, they're like, and this is the worst thing. You realize what Huxley said about Brave New World. People will love their servitude. These
Hmm.
people love their apps. They love facial recognition. They look at you like you're crazy when you say, like, what about my privacy? I come from communist, well, my forefathers from communist Yugoslavia. Like, do you guys know history? They completely wiped out. They love facial recognition, biometrics, QR codes. They absolutely love it. All of my neighbors,
Yeah.
literally. And so they want now to impose upon all of us an app that's developed here in Mexico that they want us all to use, to use it for everything. Even if you have visitors, that you'll have to send them a QR code. Like, what if they don't have a phone? And it's absolutely insane. And so, just any thought on that? Where we're really, it's an uphill battle because the normies just they love this stuff.
It's really sad, man. And I think that's the frustrating thing about all of it is seeing everyone be asleep to what is going on. And they're able to use these very human innate needs like the sense of security or the sense of scarcity when it comes to immigration and these things, and people just follow along. And it actually absolutely sucks. Like I've spent a little bit of time in Mexico and in South America, and like the gated communities are important. And now what's scary is maybe this is a business opportunity for developers that want to have a community where they don't do that stuff. Because I mean, buzzing the apartment, buzzing, the townhouse or whatever was not such a big deal. Um, but it's just sad. Yeah, it's just sad to see it happen in Mexico. I think it'll happen in other places like the US now. People have subjugated or they've delegated their security to Amazon. So they've got the Ring doorbells and stuff, which is kind of their own version of that. But yeah, like eventually, when enough people provide their legal identity with their biometrics, which I assume this app is probably going to help do, right? Like any camera can be outfitted to capture your face and see where you are at any time. And God forbid there's a draft, like in Russia right now, there is a draft. They can find you. They'll pull you off the streets. They know where you are. So it's all those movies we watched, Minority Report, that this is becoming a reality, and it's really scary.
And what you said, I actually did a little bit of research. If people just type in, I didn't even know these things existed, but apparently it's a company that's based in Nuevo León, Mexico. They've been around for a few years. They got 100,000 downloads. It's other communities apparently using this, and there are other versions of these kinds of apps that are being used already in Mexico. And I think in the US, you just type in like residence apps, and there's different kinds of them, and so they're being used in residential complexes in the US. And honestly, I complain about the cartels often, but it's kind of like I said in my head last night, I said I'd rather move out and take my chances with cartels living outside of a gated community, or criminals, than dealing with this digital dictatorship. But I wanted to get go ahead.
Yeah, it's just crazy what you're having to deal with, and so I mean, it goes back. It's kind of a healthy push, though, right, Avore? Because it's like we were kind of in this facade of security, like, yeah, we'll wait for the next pandemic. Nope, this is the next pandemic, and we're gonna make moves again. If anyone who's wise enough to see this, like you.
I just got a retweet from Sam Husseini, who was in the podcast many years ago, who does a lot of great work. And from my past podcast guest, I learned, Paula Jardine, that Robert Kadlec is looking to be nominated for the War Department. And Husseini just said, "Well, that just doubled our chances for another pandemic." But just to go back, I learned from Tim Hinchliff from Sociable about the DPI, which you talked about in your report. I call it digital proletariat infrastructure. It's for us to keep us down. But what you put together really crystallizes here the development and financing partners. It's effectively the globalists are financing all of this. Bill Gates, United Nations, World Bank is very key. So the countries that don't have money, like in the third world, they're like, "Oh, you guys don't have money to develop the proletariat infrastructure? Here you go. Make your digital ID app, make your DPI." And so, and any thoughts on this? And as well, you point out how this is part of the UN Sustainable Goals for legal identity.
Yes, yeah, the target 16.9, which aims to have digital identity for everyone by 2030. You know what I hate about them is like they're very punctual. So they actually fucking mean it. That's not like, yeah, like we're kind of trying. No, like they mean everyone. And that's why you're seeing this in every aspect of society. But yeah, in terms of the partners driving this, it's very crazy. I didn't have to. That's the thing, Vore. I'm not like a super deep investigative journalist. I just went to the website and scrolled to the bottom. They're right there. They're not trying to hide it. It's crazy that one private foundation can fund all this, but also they're getting money on the back end, because when you think about who the technical partners of these countries are, it's using probably Microsoft linked projects, right? They're using Microsoft links technology. One of those things is like MOSIP. It's called MOSIP, which they learned off of India's digital ID system, or their payments infrastructure. So it's interesting. They're donating to these projects, and then they're also getting kickbacks on the back end when it comes to their consulting and their support. With the World Bank, too, like I said, some of these projects are not strictly digital ID. They're biometric IDs. And so ECOWAS, which is the coalition of West African states, They're doing something interesting. Actually, this gentleman commented saying he had one of these biometric ID cards. He's in West Africa, and so like even in Africa, it's like, dude, they don't have like running water in many places. They're there's not enough nutrition. But hell, we got billions for a biometric ID card. That's this clown world, and so they don't give a shit about anyone in these countries. It's all about make sure you're able to document everyone in the country. So if you look in their programs and stuff, they spent like where was it? Nigeria. They spent $117 million sending people out with the biometric cameras. They're focused on registration from birth. So especially where babies are born, they're setting it up. They're getting the info. And they're creating these cards, so these cards can be used interoperably within the West African states to, identify yourself, to travel, to things like that. So it's just another example of there's no place you can go to escape this.
I don't know if you saw this story. Bukele, apparently, he signed here it is, in El Salvador. He just enacted a mandatory genetic verification law for birth registration.
Oh my God.
Which goes to what you're saying with the plans for the UN legal identity at birth registration. So Bukele is actually carrying out
Wow.
globalism, and so it's mandatory DNA test to enroll a newborn in the civil registry and confirm biological affiliation from birth. So.
I'm trying to unpack that, because does that, my question is it possible to have a birth? Like, it's basically saying that if you want them to have a legal identity, they need to be born at a hospital where they can do the genetic. So it's like all these other things too. You can't have the baby at home.
Well, it may not even mean that it has to be at the hospital. You can maybe still do it at home, but you'd have to register the kid, through the registry here, the civil registry in Mexico, and do all the paperwork and maybe give part of the DNA or something.
And their genetics too, dude. That's the part about this. It's just like, and that's what maybe that's what we got to try and get through to these people that are just like, what do you mean? It's just a biometric scan. When the fuck does it stop? It doesn't. It just does. It just keeps going. Like DNA is next. Which, by the way, thanks for that. Send me the article. But like, really, is that the next frontier? Maybe in the U.S. people use like 23andMe for their ancestry, so they have the DNA. But yeah, like it just never stops, and maybe that's what we could get across to people. Another thing too, I think that is just useful for the dialogue with normies. I don't like calling them that, but yeah, let's just say someone who's uneducated on the subject, is the aspect of digital identity theft, where if you lost your federal registration number, that's kind of a pain in the ass to deal with. You got to report it everywhere. But imagine losing your biometrics, your biometric back card. Now, I don't ever think you can get that back. How do you get that back? Like, you have to pull it like a Gattaca and just like rearrange your face or something. I don't know. But I think it's helpful to find the issues people would care about, and identity theft is definitely one of them. That's a crazy story. Did that just happen today, El Salvador?
This week, a few days ago, and I think that's a strong point. So those are the arguments I've been using. When I go to the supermarket here, they always ask me for my phone number, and I play the card that I have from my heritage, where my grandfather was a prisoner of the Nazi fascists, and I just learned he was the Germans had a concentration camp in Bosnia during World War II, so he was a prisoner there for 6 months. He was a partisan because he was forced to become one, but my grandfather, and then we had communist Yugoslavia, and I just, at the supermarket, when they asked me for my number last week, I said, I come from communist Yugoslavia. Like, is this Soviet Union? Like, to buy bread, you will know, you will. And then that kind of made them think. So using examples like that, or what you said, and I've actually used this in the past with Mexicans, where I said, like, what's next? You want my blood, my DNA? Like, what the hell? What is this? And so using points that you can concisely, effectively get these, make them think, as well as the stolen biometrics. Like I was saying the other day, my wife had her identity stolen through the Mexican tax agency, SAT. I don't know if it was the tax agency, probably. I heard someone told me that even the workers there are corrupt and sell your data. And so they told her, you had it was reported that this money transfer came to you. They didn't actually check her bank account. That you worked for 11 companies in the span of 3 years while you were living for 11 Mexican companies based in Mexico while you were living in Kazakhstan. It's like, what?
What?
And this, I talked to many Mexicans like, oh yeah, that's happened to me. And it's just kind of like, and then you have to fight to prove that it wasn't you, but it's
Wasn't.
like, it doesn't make any sense. Kind of like your example where I wasn't even here. How does one person work for 12 companies at the same time? It's
Yeah.
not even humanly possible. And anyways, real quick, you talk about biometrics for travel. I've been talking about this for a long time. 2021, I think I had on Todd Miller, who's done good
Mhm.
work on this, and he talked about the border industrial complex. And you had a segment where you talked about, obviously the exit and entry system that's coming on in EU now. So when you land, if you're a non-EU citizen, you have to give your biometrics. And then for me, the biggest one is the electronic travel authorization, which I call the electronic thought crime authorization. And for people, you on Corbett, you said that you were in UK and you left just before that was activated, I think January of this year.
It,
But there
it,
was a big YouTuber called, I think his name is David Wood, Apologetics Roadshow. He's got
is
380,000
he the
subscribers.
Christian
Yeah,
influencer guy?
yeah. Yeah. So he in January he bought tickets to go to the Jordan Peterson ARC conference, hotels, everything. He didn't know about ETA. He did it and was rejected. That's thought crime,
Mm,
social credit.
yeah.
No.
Yeah, and that's a big aspect of this. So many things I want to say about that. That's just another element, right? So now the U.S. and the EU, they have their biometric requirements. I also just happen to know firsthand that the U.S. will ask for your social media profiles as well, right? Looking for that kind of stuff, and we know that if you're anti-Israel, you're not going to get into the country. So um, that is just another huge layer of this, and it's slowly moving towards it, right? It's kind of like a manual. Like people make the argument, but don't we have digital ID already? Well, no, but all of the data being streamlined into one place. That's what they're having to do. They're having to ask you stupid forms like when you apply for your visa or whatever. With digital ID, they won't have to do that anymore because you sign in with your digital ID to that account. They know exactly what goes where, and it's a lot easier for them, right? There's less levers and buttons to press. So this thought crime thing, yeah, it'll be folded into it, and then we'll have a system that will be similar to China's, a dishonorable citizens list, which is a list that you can look at online, which is kind of cool. I assume that I'm seeing the names of people in there. I can't read Chinese. I should probably verify that. But, this dishonorable citizens list, if you end up on that, and it could be something as stupid as being sued for your character and then having to write an apology to the court, and the court not taking your apology seriously. They didn't think it was sincere enough, can end you on this blacklist. And once that happens, you can't buy plane tickets, and even people will want to stop working with you. So this is like the chilling effect. But yeah, I think that this is just the direction it's going to go. And if you want to stop this, you really have to avoid biometrics at all costs. You cannot comply to any sort of degree. And when it comes to travel, if you still want to travel, you may only have a time horizon. You probably have a time horizon of about 6 months to a year. That's what it feels like, especially for the EU. But I've been just ideating some things like, what does it look like if you fly to Istanbul, and if you catch a flight from there at a smaller airport in the EU? That would be a move. You would improve your odds. It's not a guarantee of anything, but it was October 12th when these new deadlines for the EU came in, and I left one or 2 days before. And I already saw they already had the automated border control systems already set up and ready to go. They just had to remove the person from the equation, and then you don't really have a choice anymore. But if you go to smaller airports, because this is a 6-month thing going on until April of next year, if you go to smaller airports, you have a better chance. I'll just say, don't count on that forever. You know what I mean? So, which is just sad to say.
Yeah, it's interesting. I came to the same conclusion even over the summer because I was in Croatia and I also saw what you're
Mhm.
talking about. And I don't have to worry about that as an EU citizen, but my family does. And so the next time I go, I precisely what you laid out was my just intuitive conclusion.
Yeah.
Where, this time I came in through Austria or Germany on my way to Croatia. But next time when these systems are active, because of my family, not for me because I don't have
Mhm.
to deal with it, I want to land from Turkey or somewhere else straight into my destination in Croatia.
Mhm.
If there are any issues, I mean, it's not even just nefarious. It's just the Kafka-esque stuff. Like I've read these EU forms for filling out their travel authorization that's coming online in
Mhm.
2027, I think, that if you fill out your family relation like incorrectly, like I mean, if you look at this stuff, they want you to fill it out in a way that's illogical. They say like
Mm.
if you say it's your wife, but it's you can still be wrong, and then they could on that technicality say she can't enter. And so I thought I'm
Mm.
just going to land in Croatia. I'm a Croatian citizen. I
Mm.
have the EU. There's a EU article that says EU citizens have the full right to travel with family. Um, Even if the family is not EU citizens. So I'm like, I'm here in
Mm.
Croatia. What are you going to do? I'm not leaving. You're going to have to like get a team of 20 people to carry us out. I think it's better
Yeah.
putting yourself in that sort of situation than being in, like a third um,
But a
country.
country where you're a citizen, right? You've kind of have the passport. You're you're one of them. So I think and I do think that EU states' rights is going to supersede going into another country in the EU and trying to get into the zone there. I think that's a really good idea. Maybe it's the case for more interracial marriages as citizens of the EU marry other places. Maybe this is what we do now.
There you go. We have a Mexican friend who married someone from the UK, and her grandparents are Spanish, so she's got a Spanish EU passport that way, as well as the Mexican. So there are all these little
Yeah.
tricks that you can leverage. And what you mentioned already is happening in Mexico. There was a Mexican politician who called a man, a trans woman, trans man, a man, and the Mexican government went against him, forced him to take, I don't know if he took it, the re-education course, and post Twitter twice a day apologizing for calling a man a man.
Oh my
And
God.
so that stuff's happening everywhere. And just real quick, any thought on this? Because you also talked about Russia coming down hard. And one of my listeners, so I told the story before. I met him years ago when I went to Russia. He sold me some souvenirs. We stayed in touch, and he tried to call me not long
Yeah.
ago. And Russia banned voice messages on Telegram, on WhatsApp, and now you got the Russia Max app, just like the Chinese WeChat. And Musk is working on making
Is
X the American WeChat.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, so technology plays such a big role in this, and that's why we published this report as part of Above Phone, because in the end, how is this thing going to be rolled out through our phones? Russia understands that. They're inspired by the success of China. To give you just some stats on it, it's something like 99% of people in China use WeChat or Alipay, right, as payment methods, and you can do pretty much everything inside these apps. And so Russia sees the success of this. They have a digital ID system called Goslugi, which is already backed by biometrics that people submitted when they had to KYC themselves at the bank. So Russia demanded access to the bank's biometric databases and then used it as the basis for their digital ID system. And now they're playing hardball. They give no fucks. I love it because it helped me understand the Russian mentality a bit more. Maybe this is, I mean, from a statist point of view, this is fair to them. They're tired of the Silicon Valley, and they're taking very extreme measures. So they disabled Telegram and WhatsApp calling, and they published this Max app, which is the backend for that is the Goslugi digital ID system. And so they're planning to have like mini apps inside of it, or little plugins inside of it that people could write to integrate with anything that goes on in Russia, very much like the integration system inside WeChat. So it'll have that component, and this is supposed to be the everything app. So messaging, chat, social media, everything in one, all tied to your digital ID. And they really want adoption. I mean, if you speak Russian, this is what I heard when I was reading into it. They also are just promoting it everywhere. Like all the celebrities you're talking about, like they're making songs about Max. And from what I hear, the Russians think it's super cringe, which is kind of funny. But I think Russia is a good example of a digital ID program that is like super desperate, and they desperately need people to get onto it, and their population is resistant. So this is a government doing everything in its power to get people on it. So that in the next coming years, that's what you're going to see. Once the U.S. has its potentially its state level digital ID apps, or even a national level one through Apple or X or through Google, which is already how the digital wallets is going to work. There's going to be a lot of incentives. People are going to be promoting it everywhere. You're going to get a free donut. You might get a free lap dance at the strip club for using the app, and people need to avoid it at all costs.
When I read your section on payment apps and CBDCs, it brought me back 5 years when I was in Kazakhstan. I had a account with Halyk Bank, and when COVID happened, and in the app, the Ashik app. So the Ashik app was the COVID app, and in my Halyk Bank app, when they updated it appeared the Ashik app, which was to verify your COVID status, which was kind of like the early runner of the digital ID. So that was just a clear example of how they merged your banking app, payment app system with digital ID together. So you could actually either use the Ashik standalone app that the Kazakh government developed for your digital identity verification during COVID, or you could use your Halyk Bank app, which had it built in. And so, yeah.
You nailed it. It's actually the same technology, W3 verified credentials. They used it for health passes too. So, yeah, like it's the same thing over again.
Yeah, I guess talking about solutions, you have the section. I mean, you also mentioned how the online verification laws, that's another backdoor that's coming in. Even states like Texas are doing this. I read last week, Australia. So that's just a facade, no, to bring in digital ID as well. Yeah.
Renewals, ID renewals are going to be a very popular side channel to get people onboarded into it because you're not really expecting it. Texas never made a public announcement. Same as Florida, Wyoming, many right-leaning states that would be resistant to this stuff are now requiring biometrics when you go to renew your ID. And again, there was no public announcement. I had to look at IDEMIA, which is a biometric solutions provider also used in Mexico. And I saw that there was these major partnerships, and then I had it confirmed from friends in these states that they're seeing these things now at the office. And so they'll spring it on you next time you go to renew an ID. And so I think people need to watch out for this. This is also happening in places like Canada and Australia. ID renewals will be a really big thing. And my advice still applies the same, which, Jorge, you probably thought of this too. Farther out in the country, farther away from the cities and the technology centers, if you can find offices there, that is your best bet. How much time you have, I don't know, because this is a public interview. And now I've wrestled with this idea. How much should I share this? But it's all right. Like, whatever happens, happens. And I do think if you need to renew your ID, you should be playing around with this stuff like right now, to do it right now and not get caught unprepared later on.
Yes, and you also talk about how this stuff is coming in mandatory by proxy, like EU law forces businesses to accept digital IDs, but voluntary for citizens, but increasingly required for services. India, you can live unbanked without you'll be unbanked if you don't have a phone. Maybe you won't even you'll be without a home, and effectively you won't be able to do anything. Like I'm seeing this slowly here in Mexico, and again, it's across the board. You literally, I was talking to someone recently, and it's funny how in Mexico and in Australia in August, my ISP provider changed the back end of their systems. I used to be able to just get my second factor code through email to pay my bill. They stopped that. Now you have to, and through the mobile SMS code or WhatsApp, and I had given them a landline, so I couldn't log in. I talked to someone
Mm,
abroad who said in August they had a similar issue with their bank, and it
yeah,
happened at the same time. So the Mexican ISP, the foreign bank, it's almost like a lot of these behind, in the back end, they're doing
exactly.
something in preparation for this digital ID. And I guess for solutions, I looked at your solutions. Again, it's good stuff, but I do have to admit, and I'm kind of the doom pilled guy here. I feel like we're hemorrhaging blood, and all we got are our band aids.
Very, very basic. Yeah, very basic. Havor, I'll be honest with you. I wish I had better solutions. Yeah, like I mean, this stuff is just kind of obvious, and yeah, it is like we're bleeding out. There's only so much time. I will say I will give some solutions. This is a good one I've been mentioning. So anytime you are presented with a biometric scan in your browser, which you might need to do if you're verifying a financial app or a payment processor or app itself, you can control your browser's webcam permission. And if you disable that, it might try it multiple times, maybe up to 3 times to try and scan your face. Just keep your camera off, keep something taped over it, and just submit it like, you're going to do that normally. And eventually it should realize something's wrong with your camera. Let's go to the manual method. But it doesn't ever present that to you. You have to fail first to do it. So, like, all right, there's like workarounds and stuff for now. And I suggest people take advantage of them. But I wish I had more. And I think that, I think that we need to crowdsource our intelligence. As well, like, there's some good things here in the solutions section for working with cryptocurrencies, which I know not everyone is a fan of. But hey, like, how else are you going to send money around without verifying your identity? It's one of the ways. So there's also the neobanks, which I know you're aware of, and
Revolut rejected me, so I have Wise. I haven't tried. I can't do
yeah,
N26 because I think that's certain countries, and
yeah.
Revolut, they permanently denied me. And I think maybe it was because of the confusion of my multiple identities as multiple citizenships. And so you had to
Hmm.
upload one document, which I did, my Croatian, but then it asks you, you have to, where's your tax home? And it's like, my tax home isn't Croatia, it's US. Oh, you're also a US citizen. And then the whole thing just shut down. And they sent me an email. You're banned forever from, and
Oh my
Revolut just,
God.
they're investing like, they just got their banking license in Mexico too, Revolut, which
Yeah.
is
Wow.
interesting. But yeah, I mean, I use a Bitcoin crypto exchange to receive
Hmm.
any donations, but like after looking at your stuff, I'm going to be looking into now, what do you call it? Self custody
Hmm.
wallets, because we're getting to the point where there's no option. And as you say, I'm coming, like what my story that I told here, you really need to get out to at least the outskirts of a city, if not further. Outskirts is enough, because if you can get on the outskirts of a city where you can have a well with water, some land, and grow your own food and be more self-sustainable.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah. So,
Now you're
yeah.
Yeah, you're spot on. And guys, and I just want to say, like, the solutions I'm presenting, this is just me throwing stuff at a wall. I'm not guaranteeing any of this stuff will work. Like, everyone out there, I want everyone to feel wherever you're at, Hawara and I, we're only in 2 countries. The rest of the world, you have your own unique situations. This is only going to happen if you experiment with your resistance, and you'll probably find some solutions too. And the only way we're going to get past this maybe is if we have to begin to have this dialogue and see what works, see what doesn't. And it'll be a little bit like living in communist Yugoslavia or Nazi Germany, or, yeah, that's what God has chosen us, because he thinks we're strong enough to do it. And we're the ones that are awake enough to do it. So let's take on that responsibility.
Yeah, and what I get from you is we need to be persistently resistant. So saying no and being being a spoke in their wheel. Like, I'm already contemplating, I don't know what's going to happen in my gated community, but I'm like, I'm not doing this. So, and they said we're going to make it more cumbersome for you people who want to do it the old way. I'm like, bring it on. Like, I was going to tell the lady today, the administrator, like, I'm not using this damn app. And I was literally going to tell her,
Yeah.
Look, I'm from the Balkans. Us Croats and Serbs, we're a little crazy. Like, I
Yeah.
don't give a rat's behind. I'm gonna drive right through that what do you call it?
The gate,
The thing that lifts up and break it. You can't keep me from coming into my home. So, like, being crazy
wow. Yeah.
like that. I mean, I don't think it's at that stage, but I'm just gonna scare them, try to scare them.
Right. Well, I mean, you're so spot on though, and you've got the balls to do that, which I wish more people had the balls to do that. But that's the kind of the stuff we need is just to make sure like they know there's people out there that aren't going to take this thing down, and they are going to have problems, and they better accommodate because not everyone wants to be a sheep. So yeah, that's interesting, especially when you live there. Fuck yeah, break the gate, and how are they going to keep you from getting in your home?
Yeah,
Ridiculous.
but yeah, but your roundup again, your report, I think, is the first of a kind that I've seen from the resistance movement. And you summarize everything. It's concise, so people need to get this out. And as well, your solutions, I think, are pretty much everything we can think of at this point in time, at this juncture that we can do. And I guess just to close out, I've got multiple phones, but I got my above phone here. I just got a new eSIM. I got another Mexican SIM. So I think that's
Nice.
another solution, having multiple numbers from multiple countries, and then any apps that I'm suspicious of that I don't want to put on my Googled phone. I put on my de-Googled phone, and I can sandbox it, turn off many of the permissions that I don't want, and so
Yeah,
above the people can use the Geopolitics. It's in the link description. The my affiliate link to get any above phone stuff. You guys got tablets and
yeah,
eSIMs. Yeah. Uh-huh.
if I can add in, so the phones are a really important aspect of this for, and I'm really glad you're using your above phone as it's intended to be used because there's nothing. If you use an iPhone, if you use the Google Android phone or a Samsung, there is nothing technically stopping them from automatically installing a digital ID app on your phone. There's nothing stopping them. And legislatively or by executive action, things could change to if you use your face to log into a phone, there's no reason they couldn't take that data and use it for the digital ID. So you have to be aware your phone is pre-hacked. And so that's kind of our mission at Above Phone is to make sure people don't have pre-hacked devices and they have more control of it. And that happens through open source software. So yes, these de-Googled phones, they give you more privacy and security than any other phone, but they still work with pretty much everything you could do on a normal phone. And now big tech companies are getting scared of the apps that exist on this ecosystem here. So these free and open source apps, if you use a normal phone like a Google Android or a Samsung, you're not going to be able to download these forever. In fact, in 2 years, in 2027, that date 2027 is really important. I feel like that's the countdown to the 2030 mark. But you're not going to be able to use alternative apps at all. It's off the table, much like an iPhone, right? So they're scared because they see this movement growing. They need to clamp down. This is your time to be very practical and get this technological literacy. You're going to need to sidestep and resist the technocracy. So go to abovephone.com/geopolitics. We've got our Black Friday sale going on. It's our biggest sale that we've done this year. We ship internationally. So we do phones, we do the open source laptops. And right now, you're getting special deals off the phones and laptop select models. There is also a special where you can get the combo together, the phone and the laptop. And we have a beautiful amount of privacy services you can use. I've already mentioned having multiple phone numbers. That's something you can do. You can have an unlimited number of phone numbers, as crazy as that is, using our services, which is like an app on the phone you can use with an internet phone number in US or Canada. So you get services like that, email, calendar, video conferencing, VPN, search engine, file sharing. This is why I have no life. Like we're building all these things so we have alternatives as the technocracy clamps down. So again, check it out. It's going to be going on until November 14th. So we still have a few days before it, but get it in time for Black Friday.
And if you just happen to listen to this after the sale you can, it doesn't matter. You can still look at that stuff. And what was I going to say? And to your point, Reclaim the Net, I find is a great resource, and I've been learning from them recently. As you said, Google is coming down hard on F-Droid and
Mhm.
other alternative apps, and as you say, the window is closing there. And again, the link is in the description. People can download your report as well from Take Back Our Tech or Above Phone. May the odds be ever in your favor, Hakeem.
All right. Thank you. Yes, brother. Let's keep building. Thank you for everything that you do. And thanks for having me on.